want to give some context before we do jump into this. Uh, he kind of hinted who the starting center might be on the Pistons. So this clip is from Mike Curtis. So shout out to him.
I mean, there's a combination of things: the skill set, the fit with certain guys on the floor that could be in the starting lineup. Conversations with everybody here, and in particular Troy, and then just you look at the numbers and the production, and there's probably a few more things that go into it. And then watching him play when I was here in the preseason, you could just see there's some things there with him that are a bit different than a lot of bigger players that can play that spot. I don't want to name names around the league or from the past that he reminds me of, because I think he's his own player, but he has combinations of certain skill sets that a lot of bigs don't have. And from that standpoint, that allowed for me to make that decision.
So obviously he hasn't said I'm going to name Jalen Duren as a starting center, but he kind of hinted I'm going to name Jalen Duren as a starting center. So I know we're not surprised by this at all.
Yeah, I think if you're surprised, you're only fooling yourself if you thought any other James Wiseman or Marvin Bagley were going to be named a starter over him. I know there's some fans. There's a very, very, very small minority of fans that thought Jalen Duren would come off the bench for the Detroit Pistons. I really do, though, wish he had named guys who he had compared Jalen Duren to, because I want to have a better NBA comparison, because the body, the athleticism does remind you of Dwight Howard, but the way we've seen him bring the ball up in a summer league game. We've seen him play out to the three-point line in a preseason game where you kind of think of like Bam Adebayo or even someone like a Chris Webber type, where there's the passing ability and there's a lot of fluidness to his game. I just wish Monty Williams had talked more about how he envisions Jalen Duren playing in the NBA, who he compares him to, and how he can use him more offensively. Because we've kind of heard a little bit about what they want to see from him defensively, but we don't get enough of it on the offensive side. Like, I just hope they don't use him just as like a rim roller and someone that they just throw lobs to. I want to see more from Jalen Duren on the offensive side.
Yeah, I agree with you. In terms of like comparisons, like real quick, I've heard Dwayne Casey throw out Sean Kemp, who's a throwback. If you don't know who Sean Kemp is, go YouTube his highlights. Athletic freak. I've heard Dwight Howard, not only from you, but from respected guys in the NBA that do draft analysis. I've heard Dwight Howard. I've heard Andre Drummond with some Pistons fans, and I hate that comparison. I really do, because I don't think they're the same type of player at all. I think he's got a little bit of Dwight in him. He's got that mid-range game that we haven't seen a whole lot, but I know there's something there. Like you kind of see a little bit of Rasheed Wallace in there, and that's to be expected because Rasheed was coaching him at Memphis for a year with Larry Brown and Penny Hardaway. So Rasheed probably taught him some, stuff in the post, because Rasheed is just such a smart basketball mind. But to your point, I think they are going to use him in a lot of dribble handoffs. I think you saw it in the first preseason game, and that is something where I love that for him. I don't really like the double dribble handoffs with him and Isaiah Stewart. I wish they would stop that. I wish they would just kind of rely on Duren to be that center to set a pick and kind of set up your DHO offense. But hey, I'm not a coach, but it's just something I wish they would stop, because I think Duren's a gifted enough passer to where you can just have Isaiah Stewart. Maybe he's in the corner for three. Maybe Duren's like way out the top of the key and Stewart's in the post. But for me, I think he does deserve to be the starting center. He's the most athletically gifted. It's just with him, he's kind of falling under the same lines as a lot of the Pistons on this roster. It's health, and it's always his ankle. And I think it's the shoes he's wearing personally. I think he's got to stop wearing Giannis Nikes because if you've ever wore a pair of Giannis Nikes or let alone played basketball in them, they have no ankle support. They feel like new Kobe's, not old Kobe's. Like there's no ankle support. You roll your ankle if you twist your ankle the wrong way. You need some more impact and more ankle support, in my personal opinion. But other than that, I'm happy that he's probably going to be named the starting center. But I do agree with you. I do hope that they use him in more offensive actions and just I don't want him to be like a Clint Capella, you know?
Yeah.
Because I know there's something more there with him. I know that he has the ability to knock down a 12 to 15 foot shot. I know that, around 3 to 5 feet that ball's going in, but he's still 19, I believe. Like that's crazy to think about. Like Sar Thompson's older than Jalen Duren, and we just drafted a Sar. But I know I'm rambling a little bit, but
I was thinking of another name, Alonzo Mourning, to compare him to, like old Alonzo Mourning with the Charlotte Hornets before he went to the Miami Heat. He's a little bit more athletic, and also you're talking about his ankles. He needs to do the Steph Curry workouts. Remember when Steph Curry's ankles were bothering him, and some people thought they would keep him out of the league in reaching his potential, and then he became a unanimous MVP. Jalen Duren, jump on the Steph Curry workouts. I agree with you, though. I do think there's more to Jalen Duren's game, and I do not want to see him being used like a Clint Capella or a Tyson Chandler or a Dwight Powell. I don't want to see that. I want to see him evolve into the player and try and get as close to his ceiling as we think it is. Like if you're talking about him as a top 10 player and not just a top 10 center, you need to put him in the best position to reach those heights, because there's just so much talent coming from this guy. And man, I hope he sees it in Detroit, man. I really do.
Yeah, it's just there's so much potential there with him, and I think a lot of Pistons fans see that. We see the potential. Like when we see a basketball player, we know that he's special, and I think he has all the tools to be a two-way player in this league, like where he can get you, 15 and 12 and block a few shots. And Monty Williams has even said he thinks that Duren can not only be a top 10 center, but a top 10 player in the league. Like coaches just don't come in and say stuff like that unless they see something there in him. And I think Monty just sees so much potential in him to be an absolute force in this league. And I think that's like to your point, like you want to see him more than just be like a Clint Capella type or like a Dwight Howard later in his career type of just setting screens and catching lobs and blocking shots, because he's just got a game to where it leaves you wanting more every time you watch him.